Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights and information or simply learning from them. But before I move forward, may I request you to subscribe, follow, like, and comment on whichever platform you are watching or listening to this show on. And today we have a very special guest. Rather going to him before, let's just listen about him, see about him a bit. Just a second. So we have the man himself, and let's go straight to him. William Brimstone, President and CEO at the Grindhouse Radio, Inc. and Hound Comics. Welcome to the show, Brim. Welcome to India.
First and foremost, I've got to say, AJ, finally Brimstone has made it to the KAJ Masterclass live with all you people out there. It's going to be unbelievable. Super psyched, super stoked, across over the seas, hanging out with my boy AJ. Listen, brother, we're going to have a good time today, and I'm just waiting to hear what we have to do. I'm waiting. I need my assignment, man. What are we doing? I'm ready.
Thank you for the kind words, Brim. Those are indeed very kind words, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about your journey, about a lot of insights that you have, especially into the entertainment industry. And we'll talk about how entertainers can market themselves best in today's time, because India, as you know, Bollywood is here. A lot of people are into creative stuff. There are a lot of creators coming on. It's the time of the creator economy. But let me just first talk to you. You are a pro wrestler, actor, author, comic hero, entrepreneur, podcast host, foodie, and there are several more aspects to you, what you do. So who is Brimstone? What is Brimstone all about?
Listen, I've been in entertainment for over 40 years. I started my career on, some big children's shows here in the United States, Sesame Street and Romper Room, both iconic, television series. And, throughout the years, I had the opportunity to kind of jump into many different arenas, so to speak, of entertainment. And, I've learned to navigate them all and, just really, truly enjoy life and enjoy being, me, rather than, working for someone else. I work for myself 24/7. I get to be a celebrity, which is wonderful. And, it could be worse. Life could be worse. So, it's fun to be able to kind of just be myself and go and do the things I've always wanted to do and enjoy life, because that's what it's about, right? Truly enjoying life. You want to work to live, not live to work. So for me, I work probably 3 times more than somebody who works a 9-to-5 type of a job, because I work for myself. So you have to have that work ethic in order to succeed and to continue to stay afloat. But what do you call it? But I'm determined to just leave a legacy behind of that my family can be proud of, that my kids can be proud of, my grandchildren eventually will be proud of, and their children's children, and so forth. I want people to remember and say, hey, that guy Brimstone was a great guy. He worked hard. He put out so much into the universe and gave so much back. And that's me in a nutshell. I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you.
A lot of sense, and you are very modest about your achievements. You make it sound very easy, but it has been a long journey of 40 years, 4 decades, and I'm sure entertainment industry, or any industry for that matter, Brim, is not a easy industry to be at the top place there. So tell us a bit more about your journey, how you started, how things added up one thing to other, and all the learnings that you had when you did whatever you did at different stages in life. Because I haven't met a personality like this with so many, so much talent and doing so many things as you are doing at the moment. So, how did it all begin, Brave?
Well, I mean, listen, since it is such a long history and I have done so many different things within it, it is difficult to really fit a lot into a little bit of time. But I'll give you a general gist of where I've been. As I mentioned, I was a child actor. I started probably around the age of 5. My mother and my father had gotten divorced, and my mother thought that it would be fun. She thought, I was cute at the time when I was a kid. Now I'm pretty ugly, but when I was a kid, my mother said, I think that we should take me into the city and start auditioning for different television series and commercials and whatever. So that was my first foray into entertainment in general. And let me make it clear, and it works. It goes for anybody at any age. When you're getting into entertainment, entertainers are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs should be entertaining. At the end of the day, even as a child, you are an entrepreneur because you're representing yourself. You're selling yourself. Okay. And if you can't sell yourself, nobody else is going to sell you for you. You know what I mean? You got to get to that stage, at least at the beginning. You know what I mean? So, you should be entertaining. You should be able to get in front of people, and pretty much do your thing. So as a child, I went in, I did auditions. I remember for brands like Rice Krispies and A1 steak sauce, classics here in the States. I'm sure you know some of them out there. And it gave me the first taste of the business. It's not like I was saying, "Hey, I want to go and do this." My mom just kind of took me and we did it. And what do you call it? Thank goodness she did, because here I am years later. But you know, uh, as a child in a divorced home, my parents, my father didn't have me, all but 1 or 2, 3 days a week, or every other week, or whatever it was. And my mother was trying to bring me into Manhattan, which I'm only about an hour from New York City. So everybody knows New York City around the world. You know Manhattan. So what do you call it? So I'm about an hour out of the city, and my mother was trying to bring me in and out, but there were certain days when auditions popped up and they came up on my father's days, and they had a little bit of a conflict. And at that point in time, that kind of ended my opportunity to go any further at that age. So moving along, I was a kid just growing up here in Long Island in New York. And what do you call it? The One of my favorite things was what do you call it? Art. I loved comics. I loved music. And I would sit there and I would draw and draw and draw. And I'm what do you call it? I'm actually not a bad artist. I actually wanted to be a comic book artist when I grew up. And I decided, at that time, I'm going to be a famous comic book artist, blah blah blah, and that's what I wanted to do. And that was my first thing. And as a kid, I drew so many different characters in the backgrounds and everything. So I had always loved comics and so forth. So and that all comes full circle later on in life, obviously. But then I found my first true love, which was drumming. I found it in elementary school. They what do you call it? They made us play the violin at first. So we had to play the violin just like everybody does here in the United States. You start with that, and then then they said, "All right, well, welcome to band. You could pick a different instrument now." And of course, I went for the drums and the drumsticks. I picked them up, and I never turned back. It was a really, really great way to express myself. I could get out any kind of energy that I had, and I absolutely adored playing. And that literally put me through all of elementary, middle school, high school, private school that I went to, and then right into college, to where I was going to college for music. And what do you call it? I wound up stopping going to college. I left college because I was out touring and doing the music thing. So I was in a couple of pretty successful bands. They weren't like ginormous bands, but they were pretty successful in their own right. And one day I got sick of being in a 5-way marriage. You know what I mean, with 4 other people in a band. So I decided, all right, well, what's the next step? And I wasn't done with music. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to leave music. I just kind of wanted to take a minute to take a break, take a breather. And I was at the time, because what's not in my bio, my professional bio in terms of Brimstone, my professional bio in terms of prior to being Brimstone 24/7, I had a very, very big background in sales and marketing, advertising, and so forth. So I had worked for every major publication here on Long Island in music. And then I wound up working for the what was Stern Publishing at the time, the Long Island Voice, that was a sister company of the Village Voice. The Village Voice is a very famous newspaper that is in Manhattan. And it was like the owner of Stern Publishing, Andrea Stern, her pet project. She was the daughter of the owner. She wanted to start the Long Island Voice. So she came in and she started doing this thing. And I was one of the early people in there, and I was brought in for sales and marketing, and I was high up and worked my way higher, and I handled all the bars and the clubs and the music and everything that was in in that area of entertainment in the publication. So again, my relationship with entertainment goes on both sides, you know what I mean, from behind the camera and in front of the camera. So so I have a very good idea of the business, overall, which I feel is very important for anybody that's getting into the industry. So that being said, I was working for the Long Island Voice, and one day, with fate may have it, they knew I was interested in photography. I'm a published photographer also. And they said, hey, we're short on photographers. We know you like photography. We know you like wrestling. One of our writers, who I was friendly with there, Bill Jensen, who actually is doing big things now also, which is great to see. We just reconnected recently. So Bill was doing a story on professional wrestling and blah, blah, blah. And they needed somebody to go and take some pictures. So I said, sure, yeah, I'll go down with you. So I went down and, wound up meeting a whole bunch of people that became, later on good friends of mine in the industry. And I took the pictures for him, and I had the opportunity that changed my life, which was I met first with the Iron Sheik. If anybody who watches professional wrestling, I'm sure you know the Iron Sheik, legend in the sport. And Sheiky looks at me and goes, "You look like you could be a wrestler," and I looked at it, and I was a lot smaller at that time, but I guess I had a look, and he liked the look, or he could have just been what we say in our business, working me, and just trying to make some money. But he goes, I train you to be a wrestler, and blah blah blah. And so Shiki was back and forth with me. Then his agent, who I just spoke with the other day, Snapshot Eric Sims, they call him. He started talking to me, and he started doing like his shtick for the business, trying to get me to to hire Sheik to train me. And another legend in the industry, Bret the Hitman Hart, had overheard, and we had met earlier in the day, because we were going around while Bill was interviewing everybody. I was taking the photos, so he knew I was there, and I wasn't just a fan. And he came to me and he said, listen, if you're really interested in getting into the industry, here's my email. Way back when, it was an AOL email address. And and he said to me, if you are really interested, shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, just give me time. But I said, okay, sure. So I was thumbing through a pro wrestling magazine at one point, and I came across an article that said, pro wrestling, new school opening up. And it was in Queens, New York, which then turned into Brooklyn afterwards. But it was in Queens, and I was like, it's called the Doghouse. I said, well, let me go check it out. So I actually dug up the email address, and I emailed Bret, and I said, hey, what are your thoughts? He told me what to look out for. I went down there, and the place was great. It was a little, different than what I was expecting, from a school, but it was school of hard knocks, man. And I was with it, because again, where I grew up in New York, I grew up in Uniondale, New York, and it's not a wealthy area, it's not a ritzy area. So I built myself up, and what do you call it? When I went there, I felt like I was at home. I felt at home. So, long story longer, I trained with them, and the Doghouse, LIWF, Long Island Wrestling Federation, actually produced a tremendous amount of big players that are out in the world today. And thankfully I'm one of the guys that came out of there. So that's where the Brimstone name came from, is pro wrestling. And
So
thanks to my
who okay, who gave you that name?
I did. What do you call it?
Okay.
So the story behind that is we had about an hour every time to commute to get to training. So, I, being from the music industry, being from, a marketing guy, a sales guy, an entrepreneur, I knew that I had to think of something that was going to be memorable and marketable. And I also knew that I, wanted to, even though you're not supposed to come up with a brand or a gimmick early on, I was like, well, I need to know what I'm doing, and be ready for it. And I was young and I was cocky and I was, one of those guys. And so I came up with hundreds of names. And as we were going through, for every drive, we'd knock off 10, 20 of them, and then another 10, 20 of them. And then it came down to this grouping of 10. And every time we cut, the Brimstone name just kept floating to the top, floating to the top. And I said, it's a strong name. It's not a name that's going to go in there and take a licking. It's going to be something that goes in and is powerful. And it also has longevity and it has marketability. And I figured, this could be it. And sure enough, over 20 years later, I'm still Brimstone to this day. Everybody calls me Brim or Brimstone, except for my wife and my kids. They call me all other things that you don't want to say on air here. But no, but yeah, no, that's the story of the name. And my career in wrestling was fantastic. And I had the opportunity to wrestle pretty much everywhere at one point or another, whether it was for a short period or long periods of time. And I traveled a lot with it. I toured a lot and held a lot of championships, and that was a fantastic thing. And something with me is, I was always trying to be innovative. I had my own trading cards out. I had my own, my shirt line. I had this, I had that. I wanted to make sure that people would be able to get product from me other than just 8x10s. Because again, it's a business. A lot of the young guys in the industry today don't realize that it's a business and that you need to sell yourself and you need to
Right.
sell product to survive. And what do you call it? For me, that was the beginning of really truly branding the name. And back when in wrestling, when I first started and I needed to get my name out, I mean, you're talking about marketing wise. I mean, the whole show here is masterclass. The fact is when I started, I had to go on to what they called a microfiche. I'm sure you'll know what a microfiche is, where I had to go to find the different territories in wrestling and who was where and where to send things to, and send them out snail mail, where you guys know snail mail. It's where an actual person, delivers the mail to your house, and it's not just a quick zip into the email box. So it was a lot harder for people back when to make their bones, and but that's what I did. I did a lot of guerrilla marketing, and to be completely blunt, that's why I also have longevity now, is because not only do I utilize the new form of marketing, which is obviously the internet and social media and so forth, but I still go back to my guerrilla marketing days, and I will hand things out or have people handing things out. I will make appearances. I will go and shake hands and kiss babies, do different things, do charitable events, go back, look in publications that are older, find people who I want to talk with in terms of articles and so forth that are written about me. So there's a lot of work that I put in that and yes, I have a publicist and I have a team of people. I have assistants at this point in the game. But I have that work ethic that if I'm not doing it, nobody else is going to do it. Even though they get
Right.
paid to do it, I do the most for myself. And I've always prided myself on putting my best foot forward and making things happen. So I hope I'm answering your questions, by the way.
Of course, very well. In fact, and yeah, if you have finished, then I'll ask my other question. The story remains.
Go ahead. I mean,
Okay.
I could go on forever, but that's where I
You
got to the
can,
wrestling.
because then first was your start, your early life, then into pro wrestling, and then how did this radio thing happen? That's that what you are doing right now,
Oh, I mean,
and obviously the comic books.
So the comic books after the years of wrestling, I started deciding that, listen, I love the business and I would love to be in the ring right now. Matter of fact, I was lamenting over it earlier this morning, after you woke me up with your email. No, I'm just kidding. Remember, guys, it's about 8:00 his time and about 10:30 in the morning, 8:00 at night his time and about 10:30 in the morning my time. So what do you call it? We're adjusting with each other here. You're winding down and I'm waking up. But that being said, I didn't want to be in my 60s, having a bump around in a ring, and I had already done a lot there. I had my own school. I toured. I did a whole bunch of different things. One of my students had opened up a school. I went and I worked with one of my students to help train students there, and I already spread my seed in what do you call the pro wrestling world a lot, and I decided, if I want to make my way out a little bit, I need to do something that doesn't kill the Brimstone brand, and that will continue on a quote unquote legacy that I'm going to leave, behind. So I figured to myself, I said, well, in terms of the professional wrestling world, what are pro wrestlers? What are wrestlers to you? They're real life superheroes. You know what I mean? We get in the ring, we jump around, we beat each other up, we toss it around and throw, everybody comes out in a colorful outfit. Well, at least back when they did. And so I went, I said, Brimstone would be a really cool comic book character. Boom, right back to my love of comics. And I said to myself, I can't do this one on my own because I can write, but I don't know how to do it and how to get it off the ground. But I'm gonna learn, So I called up my buddy Marcello Carnevale, who is a friend of mine, in wrestling. But he and I had a mutual friend, one of my tag partners, Chris Hostel, who I knew from the music days, and I brought him into the wrestling school with me. What do you call it? He was friends with Chris, and then Chris and I Chris introduced him to me, and we've been friends ever since. And one of my best friends in the world. And we went to sit down for what was supposed to be maybe a half hour, 45-minute cup of coffee at a diner, where I was telling him, hey, this is my idea. What do you think? And we wound up sitting there for about 3, 4, 5 hours, and wrote out the entire Bible for the Brimstone and the Borderhound universe, which, encompassed the comic book series, and what would turn into a kids book series as well, and the animated, everything you could think of, the video games. It all started at that one meeting at a local diner. And what do you call it? We started talking about it. We got it going. He agreed to get on. He started writing the first 4 books, which is the first a 4-book story arc. And I started working on putting together the team. And it took some time. It took a couple of years to get it off the ground. People sometimes think that it happens like this. It took a couple of years. I had to learn an entire business. However, I had a tremendous amount of publishing history because I worked for so many different publishers. I
Right.
also worked for Newsday, which for those of you in the New York area, Newsday is one of if not the biggest newspaper in the area because they bought me from The Voice. We didn't even touch on that. What do you call it? And then what do you call it? I had worked for another company worked with another company called Job Expo that they wanted to open up their own publication. And there was a guy who was there doing it a little bit and wasn't necessarily doing a great job. He started getting it started, but it was called Careers LI, and I wound up taking it, flipping it into the Employment Journal, and I built it out from a 6-page ads publication to over 150-page ad publication with what do you call it, with contacts everywhere, and distribution and the printing and blah blah blah, you name it, and I did it, and then expanded with other career fairs. And this was on the side of doing wrestling and everything else, mind you. So what do you call it, so while I'm touring, I'm doing this other stuff. So that being said, I launched this Employment Journal. I did very, very well with that, but I knew publishing. So I didn't have to learn everything, but comics is a completely different animal. So I wound up, I figured out who I was going to print with, built some relationships, and got my team together, which is, again, it's a whole story. But, to make it a little quick and kind of more in a nutshell, I found people. So if you're looking to do something like this, I found people online because now we have the luxury of the internet. And I Googled, I found people on what they call DeviantArt, which is a place where artists go to show their stuff, and found some really amazing artists who were they were first getting out there. They didn't have a name yet. And I went and I promised them, I said, if you work on this with me and don't charge me, up front, what do you call it, I will give you on the back end, and I promise you I will get your name out there. Because I already had a name. People knew me.
Right.
The people that I came on knew who I was. It wasn't like I was a complete stranger, which was a good thing. And what do you call it? Sure enough, after a couple of years of putting it all together, we had 4 issues up, done, ready to go. And I what do you call it? I put out the I started putting out the call to all of the different big publishing companies because even though I knew what I was doing and going in as a publisher, I wanted to see if I can get it picked up from friends of mine at Marvel, friends of mine at DC, friends of mine at, Image. So I sent to people, crickets, didn't hear anything. So I what do you call it? So I said, okay, no problem. So I said, I'm gonna put it out myself. So we put it out, and then at that point in time, Borders Books was one of the big bookstore companies here in the States. I don't know if they were outside of the United States. Did you have Borders there or no?
I
Borders
don't
Books?
know. I
No,
don't
okay.
know much about. Yeah.
So Borders Books was one of the big retail bookstores here in New York and around the country. And I released the book in all the Borders stores across the
Okay.
country, self-published, under Hound, but it was just self-published. We were the only book, Hound Comics. And what do you call it? We put it out there. Borders Books started. We did a signing in one of the stores for the first book. Borders started closing their stores up about a month or two after that. So we pulled all the books, and then we relaunched in Barnes and Noble and B. Dalton's across the country, which are basically the same thing as what Borders was. So we wound up being the only independently owned and operated comic in every Barnes and Noble and B. Dalton in the country, and the few that they had abroad, wherever it was. So our book was out next to DC and Marvel and Image Comics, Dark Horse, in all these locations. So I said, all right, well, you're not going to help me, well, I'll do it myself. I sold our own advertising, whatever. And then I said to my director of operations at the time, who's still a good friend, Eitan Wish, I said, Eitan, what do you call it? We need to start touring again so I can get out there, meet people, let them see the book, and promote the comic. So he said, okay. We started doing some Comic Cons. We started booking some Comic Cons where I was signing and doing the Brimstone thing there, and what do you call it? Reconnecting with old friends and people that I met along the way. And one of them I met back up with in Manhattan. I won't forget it. It was Gotham Trade Show, I think it was called. Whatever. It was just a small show, and the celebrities, we were all in one little room, and people would have to come in. So it wasn't a big show. We had some time to kind of just hang out. And next to me were old friends of mine that I hadn't seen in a long time, maybe met once or twice. So we were friendly. We became very close after. But it was Peter and Angie Mayhew. So you might not know them by name, but Peter Mayhew is Chewbacca from Star Wars. Okay, so for those of you who are Star Wars fans, Chewbacca, is Peter. So, Angie, while we were doing our thing signing, in between, she said, Brim, I really like what you're doing with the comics and the kids' books and everything. And she goes, it looks like you really have a good thing going with your brand. Would you be interested in publishing, Peter's books? I said, well, I guess I am now. And we wound up, I wound up thinking, all right, no problem. And, so then I had to figure out, all the stuff of that. And I can say it now years later, we are the only company, at least up until that point in time, the only company that had the right to use the Chewbacca character without paying out anything to the Lucasfilms. Now that Disney owns it, we would have had, even if we would have never had that deal anymore. But what do you call it? So I put out his 2 books, and then friends of mine from Disney and Nickelodeon, artists, they were like, "Well, could you put out my book? Could you put out my book?" And then so I said, "Well, it's time to incorporate," and that's how Hound Comics Inc., Hound Entertainment Group was born. So now you want to get into the foodie stuff. When I was going to start moving, and I'm trying to give you guys nuts and bolts here, just little,
yes.
because I could go on forever. That you could get that in my book that I'm working on. But what do you call it? The foodie stuff happened because I told Aton again. I said, well, we're going on the road again. We're going to be touring a lot. I said, I'm sick of just seeing the insides of hotels, arenas, and convention centers. I said, I'm sick of the planes, trains, and automobiles. I want to be able to see the cities that I'm in. You know what I mean? And he goes, well, what do you want to do? I go, well, I like to eat. He goes, yeah, we know that, Brim. I said, shut up, Aton. I said, then what do you think? Goes, I said, well, I like to talk. He goes, yeah, we know that, Brim. I go, shut up, Aton. Don't say shut up to your friends. It's not nice. And I, what do you call? I said, why don't we do some kind of a foodie thing? So Food Hound Tidbits was born. We wound up doing 3 seasons of Food Hound Tidbits while touring across the country. We went from the Comic Cons, the floors of the Comic Cons, to the tabletops of mom and pop hot dog shops and 5-star restaurants. And we built a brand and a business in the Food Hounds business. So, and I would always bring out, or most of the time when we'd bring out another one of the celebs that I'm friends with to come and sit down and eat with us and be a part of it. So we did that for 3 seasons. And what's the next natural progression of doing a food series? Well, putting out food products. That's where all my sauces and seasonings came from. There's a whole story behind that, which obviously we're not going to get into every detail, but I had that, my coffee line, my candy bar line, my candy line. And now the cool thing about all of this stuff, especially the sauce and seasoning, is the fact that in the comic book, there's a place where the Border Hounds, because Brimstone is a crew of Border Hounds, in the wastelands, they go to a place called Heaven, which is right smack and dab in the middle of hell. Don't worry, it's just a gimmick. It's a comic book, and complete with Stairway. Now, those of you who aren't privy to it, a legendary band called Led Zeppelin does a song called Stairway to Heaven. So what do you call it? So when I say a stairway up to heaven, what do you call it? Which is the bar. That's the joke. But I guess if I have to explain the joke, it's not as funny. But at least you guys know what I'm talking about. So anyway, you go in there, and inside this bar is where all the Border Hound units hang out. And in there, they can have, sweet heat wings or grindhouse burgers. You catch the word grindhouse. And what do you call it? Grub munchies and this, that. So there's all these different things that they can actually, see in the comic, but then they can also make and have in real life. So that being said, everything is marketed within the comic. And then I said grindhouse wings. what do you call it, when I was getting sick of being on the road all the time, and I wanted to try to stay home a little bit with my family more so than being out of town. What do you call I came up with the idea of doing a show called the Grindhouse Radio. Grindhouse Burger. See, it all kind of works together.
Right.
And again, I'm speeding through things, so please, I hope you guys are following along. I know I'm talking way too much, but what do you call it? So getting to that point again, just like in the comics, and just like I figured, all right, well, I have a lot of contacts, I have a lot of connections. I called all the local media, all the radio. I said, hey, you know me. I've been on air with them as a guest a million times. I've done events with them. I figured, all right, well, I'd like to start a show. I wanted to throw the idea to you guys and see what you think. Crickets, AJ. I heard nothing but crickets. And what do you call it? I said, okay, this isn't going to work. So I started looking into different ways to put this, this idea into fruition. And nothing was working the way I wanted it to work in terms of what I felt comfortable with. Eventually, I had a couple of interns that started working with me who both had history in radio, and I said to them, because we had great banter in the office, I said, what do you guys think of putting together, sitting around and putting together a podcast, well, a show? Because at the time I didn't say podcast because I just wanted it to be a show. I said, what do you think about doing a show? And the three of us sat down after hours one day, a single microphone in the middle of the office on a desk, because it was Hound Entertainment, corporate, and we were on a main road, so you hear the cars whizzing by. It's not like now where everything is soundproofed and we have professional equipment. And what do you call it? We sat down, an hour went by. It was like this, pure magic. I said, this is going to be something. Grindhouse Radio was born. Over 7 years later, we've got between 3.5, 4 million listeners weekly worldwide. Collectibles and toys out there. We've won a tremendous amount of awards. We've won in our area one of the sweetest things, best radio station for 4 years straight over all the radio stations who didn't give me a shot. And what do you call it? And here we are, just sitting in a good place, pop culture talk radio. So that's basically from A to Z, not counting all the voice work and all the other stuff, but just to give you a little idea of where I came from. And see, that's why it's dangerous to ask me where I've come from, because we've already gone 35, 36 minutes into the show, me babbling on like a brook.
It was not a babble. It was a journey from where you started, how you started. Because I'll tell you, Brim, is that I could have asked 10 questions and all this information would not still come out. Some people's life itself is the message to the world, as well as learnings and insights to whoever can learn from them. So
Absolutely.
we got to know about everything that you did, how you branded yourself, how you marketed yourself, how things happened as you walked. So how you need to keep on walking, and then to have good relationship with a lot of people, and obviously to manage a lot of stuff. I will come to ask you how exactly you manage all this stuff. But if for people who have joined in late, I would like to play that clip once again. And in the meantime, you can also, just catch your breath, because you talk a lot of good stuff, but then everybody needs a bit of breather. So just have a breather and watch yourself. So let me see if it plays correct. Yes, Brave.
Hello, everybody. Hello. And if there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yes. If there are, obviously, this is evening time. A lot of people are returning from their offices, whoever is watching, or maybe if they ask anything later on, I will certainly, try to put them up to you. Now, after all this, just a lot of insights into your life about how you planned everything, how you marketed and branded yourself. Just want to ask one thing, you know, how did you manage all these things? Because if I tell you every stage in your career or your life that you were doing, if just one thing was perhaps enough for you to be, to just sit back and enjoy your life, but you used everything that you had at that point in time onto the next thing and next thing and next thing. What was the driving force behind it all? What was it?
Well, first and foremost, I want to be a household name eventually, which would be a beautiful thing. I mean, a lot of
Okay.
people know me, a lot of people do, but at the end of the day, I won't be satisfied until everybody knows me and for positive things. That's
Okay.
first and foremost. Second of all, to put food on the table, man, just to feed my family. My family is everything, and I want to make sure that I can provide for my family, and the only way to continue to make money when you work for yourself is to work. And so because it's really funny because a lot of people who work, their 9 to 5 jobs, or they work for someone else, um essentially, they're like, oh, well, you get to play all the time. You're playing all day, and oh yeah, yeah, it's not a real job. Well, I work 3 times more hours than you do, and and if I miss an hour of work, then I'm not getting paid for that hour of work. You know what I mean? You can rest your head down when you get home and kick up your feet and not do anything. Well, I'm still on phones, on the computer, on air, so having to do God knows what, do voice work, you name it, and I'm still working. Here, perfect example. You messaged me at seven o'clock this
Yeah.
morning.
Yes.
Well, no, actually, you messaged me at 2 a.m. last night for me. You know what I mean? And then I actually just passed out when that had happened because I did an appearance earlier in the day. And what do you call it? So I didn't see it until this morning. Otherwise, you would have had it last night for you. But what do you call it? But 7 o'clock in the morning, I just woke up. And I'm already on my phone working, responding to you, responding to about 30 other people. You know what I mean? And navigating and scheduling and doing before I was able to go back to sleep for
Okay.
another hour, maybe before I had to get to the studio to be on with you. You see what I mean? So, people think it's, oh yeah, no, I work hard, man. I work very hard. And other people will be, oh, well, you could get away. Well, you could just take a couple of days. No, well, if I want, like this past week, I could have taken the entire week off or week and a half. My wife and my kid, one of my youngest, were off from school and work. So what do you call it? Because she works in a school, so the schools were closed and they were on their vacation, and I could have just taken a week and a half off. But then I'm not making any money, right? I'm not doing anything. I'm not progressing. I'm not growing. I'm not building. I'm not putting food on the table. So what I did was I did events or things that I brought them with me to, all right, which was work based but still family time. You know what I mean? And then I did work around, you know what I mean, my family time. So yeah, I was out and about and doing things, but I was also doing work or seeing people or meeting people. Hell, I mean, we went to see friends of mine over in Sleepy Hollow, New York. Sleepy Hollow is the legendary Headless Horseman. I don't know if you know that out there, but the legendary Headless Horseman, the legend of Sleepy Hollow, that's the cemetery where the Headless Horseman rode and so forth. That being said, what do you call? I went there to show, to bring my wife and my little one so she could see the grounds, and I was with, the guy who runs the grounds, and we're friends over the years, but because he brings me around whenever I'm in the area and teaches me new things and shows me historical stuff. But then we went out to eat. I said, hey, come out, let's go get some lunch, before we go get home. We went out to lunch, and I'm sitting and taking pictures and signing autographs for people that recognize me. I'm always working, whether you think so or not. And I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. But what do you call it? But it does bother me when people think that I'm not constantly hustling, or think that what I do is a game or a joke, or like that. they don't truly understand. Running is, running a business like I do for the Grindhouse Radio, which is a constant hustle. The same thing on Hound Entertainment Group, Hound Comics Inc. You know what I mean? Like, that's two different businesses that have ridiculous amount of entities within it, not counting the Brimstone brand, which has a tremendous amount of different entities within it, from the food brands to the voiceover work to the toys to the this, that, you name it, and that's a pain in the neck to manage myself. So all those, and that's before I get to see my wife and my kids. You know what I mean? That's why I'm
Right.
doing a new series called Bringing Back the Food Hound IP. It's called Food Hound Home Edition, and I'm doing it with my son. What do you call it? Who's 20, going to be 21, and we're doing a foodie meets celebrity family series for a streaming service. So you guys can keep your eyes out for that. But what do you call it?
And
At
then
the
a
end,
book is also on the way.
yeah. Well, I've been working on I started my autobiography years ago, way before I ever should have started it. So now, I literally just the other day sat back down, because I've been planning on trying to get started again. What do you call it? But I sat back down to fill in all the blanks, because that was just what I wrote in that book, which is already a tremendous amount of pages, and I need to figure out what I'm keeping, what I'm getting rid of. But that was just a tiny little fraction of what I've been through in my career. So now we're working on everything from then till now, which is, that's a full autobiography. That's what I really, want to see, be completed, because there's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of story, a lot of things that, people ask and people don't know, or, I that's really what I'm really psyched about getting that moving again. My wife's not so much, because she does the editing for me on it. So she's gonna go through and make sure everything is there. It's the bane of her existence. But at the end of the day, it's something that means a lot to me. And people will be able to get a good aspect of entertainment, of entrepreneurism, and me as a person, not just the public figure.
Right, Brip. In fact, you don't need to justify anybody as to how many hours you work, or whether you work hard enough or not. You got so many things to do. Even just to do one small thing of those hundreds of things that you do takes a lifetime for so many people.
Oh yeah.
and
Well,
that's a lot of achievement for you. Now, in terms of a lot of people who are entertainers today, you have seen this industry from very close. You have got given so many insights. Now, what would you tell them in few points, that how they can market themselves best in today's times? Because today times are changing. There are so many things that has come up, but you saw them all coming up. You have been a part of that. They have been part of your journey, and you utilize all tools of marketing and branding that were possible. So what is your insight for especially entertainers, how they can market themselves best? It's a global world, and India is not very far off from how things are happening in the US.
and mind you, I would love to do something in Bollywood. Love it. I have always wanted to do something Bollywood. I think it's fantastic. Matter of fact, somebody gave me, I don't know what it was, but somebody credited me in a Bollywood movie. And I don't know if I might have actually done something for it at one point, but I didn't know it was a Bollywood movie. So I would like to figure out what that was again. I can't find it anymore. But
Okay,
regardless,
then.
I've
Right,
I've
right.
always wanted to do a Bollywood. So if you know anybody in Bollywood that needs an ugly white guy with a beard, what do you call it? Who can talk? I'm in, and I can dance too.
Okay,
You know what I
I'll
mean?
make a I'll make a clip out of it. This special clip about your Bollywood interest, and let's see. There are a lot of people who are a part of my LinkedIn profile, and friends down there. And maybe if I know a few people personally, I'll certainly pass it on to them. And
I am in. I am
and
in.
maybe I'll also try and find out who gave you that credit for whatever you did for that movie.
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but anyway, so back to your question. So to answer your question, first and foremost, I tell anybody that wants to get into entertainment or entrepreneurism, you need to learn the trade that you're going to get into. No matter where I was throughout my entire career, when I was getting into something that was new that I wasn't, fully versed in, I wanted to become a student of that spectrum. So I wanted to make sure to understand what I was getting into, what I needed to know, who I needed to know, and really understand that playing field, because everything might have slight, a bunch of things that are similar, but overall there's many vast differences between different industries. If you want to be an actor, well, then you need to hone the craft of being that actor, but I should suggest that you also learn the business aspects of being an actor. Learn contracts, learn some photography, learn your best angles, learn your what do you call it, what you need to put together a proper package. I saw you had in that little thing, you used my EPK, an electronic press kit. Those are invaluable now because you take them, you send it out, and it gives you, information. And at least it gives people an idea of who you are, what you've accomplished, what you've done in a nutshell. You know what I mean? In a nutshell,
Right.
and gives the person an opportunity to take a look at you and say, okay, I want to write about this person, or I want to give them a shot. In terms of marketing, again, your best bet is you have right in front of you at your fingertips. Everybody has a phone these days. You go on your phone, you go on your computer, social media the hell out of yourself. And guess what? Promote yourself. Promote. I don't care what anybody says. People used to talk smack about me all the time. Oh, he promotes himself. Oh, all he self promoter. Oh, especially in the wrestling industry. I had some haters. That they were go nowheres. So they would sit and talk. All he does is promote himself. He's what they call a mark, which is like a super fan. Derogatory word for a super fan. He's a mark for himself. And you know what? At the end of the day, no, I'm not a mark for myself. I'm a smart businessman. I understand that you need to promote yourself and market yourself, because if you don't do it, who else is going to do it for you? There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other people all around the world. It's not a small place. This has billions and billions of people, okay, that are doing the same thing you're doing. What makes me different than anybody else? So I have to stand out. So if I'm not promoting myself and I'm not talking about what I'm doing and I'm not out there and building the brand, who else is going to do it for me? So that is one of the biggest things. Doesn't matter what anybody says. Steer clear of the hate. Steer clear of the people that are going to talk smack. They're unimportant. You've never seen a hater doing better than you. You work hard and you
That's
push
actually
forward.
true.
Work hard, push forward. And the fact is it's okay to fail. Fail. I'm telling you, fail a few times, fail 3, 4, 5, 1,000, doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter. Failure is progress. Failure is a key and a major seed for your success, because once you fail, you take a few steps back, you look at it, you plant that seed of failure, and then you move forward another 10 steps because you've learned from what you've done wrong. So you pick up and you clean yourself off, you wipe yourself off, wash up and move forward your 10 steps. You know what I mean? And that's the game of life. People get so hung up on their failures, or having people they said they're going to do this but they didn't do this. They're just a loser. But you know what? These are people that are too scared to do it themselves. You know what I mean? Or they're talentless and they can't do it themselves. Don't listen to anybody else. Understand failure is a part of life. I take those failures and I wear them as a badge of honor. And the fact of the matter is it's not about, it's old saying, but not about how many times you fall down. It's about the times, about getting back up. You know what I mean? It's the times that you get back up and move forward again. So those are some of my go-tos, and in terms of what people should do. Become a student of whatever you're going to get into, and learn how to market the hell out of yourself. Learn how to be different. Be different. in the voice world. Here, perfect example, the voice acting world. And I'm sure a lot of people out there, especially nowadays after
Right.
during
Right.
the pandemic and whatever, everybody's got a microphone, will travel, right? So at the end of the day, if you're trying to do something, whether it's voice work, radio, what, you need to be something different. You can't, if you sound like everybody else, you're not going to get that job. You know what I mean? You're not going to get the position. You might work a little bit, but being unique, being yourself, that's what's going to make it work. I've got long hair, long beard, earrings, usually my skull rings back and forth, and I can walk into a boardroom and demand whatever the hell I want to demand because they know that I come with that expertise. You know what I mean? And they respect the fact of what I've done and what I've accomplished and what I will still continue to accomplish. That's what you get when you put yourself out there and you are working hard and you are unique and you try to dare to be different. You know what I mean? Be better. It's one of the things I tell everybody. Be better. So in terms of and also keep in mind doing voice work or doing radio stuff or what, just because you go and put yourself out there and look for work or look for representation or whatever, and they say no, doesn't mean you're not good. It doesn't mean that what you're doing is not good. It just means you're not necessarily what they're looking for at that time. So don't get frustrated. People get frustrated easily, and then they give up, and they give up on it. Oh, it's not my dream anymore. I don't care. No, work hard. Figure out what you could do differently, and then take a couple steps back, and then move forward again. It's that simple. There's a game to all this, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell all the secrets of it. You got to learn them for yourself, because that's part of growing with it, is learning those secrets, learning the business, learning what you do, what not to do, where to go, where not to go, who to network with and who not to network with. And it's all part of the game. You know what I mean? So I suggest that anybody who's looking to get into entertainment, entrepreneurism, to really, really to dig deep into themselves and really put everything they have into whatever they're looking to do. I hope I'm making sense.
You made all the sense, Brain, that one needs to understand. And when you have already said anything, there is nothing more to add to, at least ask from my side, at least in terms of value add for any entertainer who's looking for a career or some advice as an entrepreneur. So my last question, Brahim, is that how does one contact you if they need to contact some businessman, some Bollywood guy who wants to talk to you or discuss something with you?
Well,
Anybody else who can?
Well, anybody who's serious that is a friend of yours, AJ, you can feel free to CC them in on an email and direct them to me because I would love to do some Bollywood stuff. That would be amazing. What do you call it? It's so much fun. I don't even get me started. You know what I mean? But that being said, what do you call it? Anybody who would like to contact myself, all my agents and everybody are listed, obviously serious inquiries only. They're all listed on my official website, therealbrimstone.com. It's in the contact page. You can scroll down anywhere that you want to, work within. You contact one of my agents. You can also contact directly on the website. One of my people will review it, and if it is something real and they research and you're straight up, then you will get a response. I'm also very, very, very active on social media. Time willing, of course. The last few weeks have been very, very crazy, but I have been on. So I released a couple of different things, so from some voice work that I did. What do you call it? So, but if you go to at The Real Brimstone on Instagram, I'm always on Insta. That's my go-to social. Facebook is there too. Twitter, I'm on there too. But Instagram is really what I use regularly. And you can get everything again on my official website, therealbrimstone.com. And if you use social media a lot and you want to use my mug in any of your messages for gifts and stuff, just go to when you put in gifts, put at GHR Brimstone or Brim or whatever, and a whole bunch of them will come up, or giphy.com/GHR for Grindhouse Radio, and you'll see a whole bunch of Brimstone gifts to play with. Over 1.4 billion used, so hopefully you guys will enjoy them.
Thank you, Brim. It's a wonderful show because you took time out for us. It was an honor actually to talk to somebody who has worked so hard all throughout his life, achieved so much, and still does so much work for not only for himself, for his family, but also for a lot of other people. I know you do a lot of charity work. We'll talk about
a lot.
Yes, I know that. We'll talk about few more other things
Sure.
when we catch up again, when I get to have you in my show once again. As of now, it's been a good 1 hour, full 1 hour, and we are going beyond that. It is nice that we could talk to you. So thank you very much for your time from the one and only the Brimstone. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great one, and stay connected.
Thank you.